What's going on, everyone? You're welcome once again to David Data channel. And on today's video, we're going to be continuing our DBT A to Z series. In our previous videos on this series, we've talked about artifacts, build, CI/CD for core and for cloud. We've talked about defer flag, environment, and favor state flag. And on today, for the letter G, we're going to talk about graph operators. Now, if you've tried to select complex node selections in your DBT project, then this video is for you, because with graph operators you can select specific models within your DBT project to run, as opposed to running your whole project when you want to just make a simple change on a couple of models, right? So just move along with me as we go on this journey. So what are graph operators? DBT graph operators are special symbols you use within your DBT commands that allows you to run specific models and their upstream and or downstream dependencies in their typical lineage graph. Now think about your typical DBT lineage graph. On your lineage graph, you could see a model with its upstream and downstream dependence models. Now, with your graph operators, you can run specific models and their dependencies either upstream or downstream. Now, that's beautiful. Now, if you wanted to run a certain model, certain models depending on a particular model, you didn't have to run that one by one or put a long string of each of those model names. But with the graph operators, you can run specifically the models and the dependencies you want to run. In this video, we're going to be looking at some of these graph operators and how you could use them to improve your DBT development workflow. So the first operator is the plus operator. Now, with the plus operator, DBT expands your node selection to include ancestors and descendants, as upstream and downstream models, dependent on the model you've selected. So how does this work? Now, if you put the plus operator at the front of the model name when you're doing your DBT run or DBT build select model name, DBT is going to run all the ancestors or all the upstream models that model depends on, right? If you put that plus operator at the end of the model, DBT is going to run the downstream models dependent on that model or the descendants of that model. If you chose to put the plus operator before and at the end, or before and after the model name, DBT is going to run all the ancestors, that is all the upstream models, and the descendants, that's all the downstream models of that model. Now, with your plus operator, you can specifically target the model and the dependencies you want to run for that model when you're doing your DBT run commands. Alright, so the next operator we have is the N plus operator. Now, the N plus operator is similar to the plus operator, but right now it's almost like it's on steroids. Now, it allows you to specify the level of depth you want to go in your selection. So instead of doing model plus to get the model and all its downstream dependencies, you could do model plus 2 or model plus 1 or model plus 3. So if we do model plus 1, you're basically telling DBT run the dependencies to the first degree, right, to the first degree descendant, plus 2 to the second degree descendant, plus 3 to the third degree descendant, and so forth. So let's say there's a long chain of all, or there's a long chain for all the models dependent on that model. For example, the N plus operator would allow you to specify the number of depths you want to go when you're giving that command. So the plus would run everything, all dependencies, all upstream ancestors, right? But then with the N plus, you can specify the number of depths to go upstream or to go downstream from your model. So finally, we have the at operator, which is represented with the at, right? Now, with the at operator, DBT goes a step further. Beyond just selecting the ancestors or dependents or descendants of that model, DBT runs that model and every ancestor that model is dependent on. So let's say you have a model C, model D, you want to run model D and you use at. With your command, you put an at model D. DBT is going to run first all the models that model D is dependent on. So that's why, let's say you're working on a new schema that does not have some of the models on that schema, and you run that DBT command. Typically it's going to fail, right, because this model does not exist there. But then with the at command, DBT is going to automatically run all the upstream models that model depends on, right? This is really a game changer, right? It's going to help you in your CI/CD workflow, right, to ensure that models are only run when they're dependent, or when their ancestor models or their upstream models have run first. To recap, here's a quick rundown of how the graph operator works. Now, the plus operator expands your node selections. The N plus operator helps you to specify the depth or degree of your node selection. And then the at operator automatically selects all upstream or all ancestors of the nodes you have selected for each of your models. Now, whether you're fine-tuning a specific build or you're managing a massive DBT project, these graph operators would help you manage your workflows and help you run efficient queries. So that wraps up our video on DBT graph operators. I'd like to hear your thoughts and experiences on using DBT graph operators. If you found this video helpful, please I'd like you to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell so you can be notified once a new video drops in. In our next video, we're going to be talking about DBT hooks for our letter H of our A to Z series. Thank you so much. Until next time, keep using DBT.